Okay, I'm really excited about having this book in my library. It ends up looking really thick. But this is The True Meaning of Smekday by Adam Rex. And I got this book because I was watching Home with my kids one day, and at the very beginning it says that it's based on this book. So I picked it up, and it was really funny. It's a little bit different than the movie, but it always is. But really funny, really witty. And the interesting thing is it's written kind of as an assignment from Gratuity Tucci. So it's like her school assignment to write an essay about Smekday and the invasion of the aliens. So it has a little bit of a different take to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started with it. So this is The True Meaning of Smekday by Adam Rex. And they've got a couple pictures in here, so I'll show you those ones. Assignment. Write an essay titled The True Meaning of Smekday. What is the Smekday holiday? How has it changed in the years since the aliens left? You may use your own personal experiences from the alien invasion to make your points. Feel free to draw pictures or include photographs. All essays will be sent to the National Time Capsule Committee in Washington, D.C. The committee will choose one winning essay to be buried with the National Time Capsule, which will be uncovered 100 years from now. Essays must be at least 5 pages long. I think she went over that. 5 pages. Gratuity Tucci, Daniel Landry Middle School, 8th grade. The True Meaning of Smekday. It was moving day. Should that be capitalized? I never would have capitalized it before, but now moving day is a national holiday and everything, so I think it should be capitalized anyway. It was moving day and everybody was crazy. You remember, it was chaos. People running around with armfuls of heirloom china and photo albums, carrying food and water, carrying their dogs and kids because they forgot that their dogs and kids could carry themselves. Crazy. I remember one lady with a mirror, and I thought, why save a mirror? And then I watched her run down the street with it in both hands, armed outstretched like she was chasing vampires. I saw a group of white guys dressed as Indians who were setting fires and dropping tea bags down manhole covers. There was a man holding a chessboard high over his head like a waiter, looking all around him on the pavement, shouting, "Has anyone seen a black bishop?" over and over. I remember Apocalypse Hal was on the corner by the laundromat. Hal was a neighborhood street preacher who worked at the fish and crab place next door. He wore a sandwich board sign of Bible verses and shouted angry things at passerby like, "The end times are near," and "Seafood Sampler $5.99. Now his sign just read, "I told you so," and he looked more anxious than angry. I was right," he said as I passed. About the fish or the apocalypse?" I asked. He followed beside me. Both. That should count for something, shouldn't it? That I was right?" "I don't know." "I didn't think it would be aliens," he mumbled. "I thought it would be angels with flaming swords, something like that. Hey, maybe they are angels. You find some pretty weird descriptions of them in the good book. There's this one angel in Revelation with 3 heads and wheels." I think they're just aliens, Hal," I said. "Sorry." Apocalypse Hal stopped, but I kept walking. After a few seconds, he called after me, "Hey, girl, do you need help carrying stuff? Where's your pretty mom?" "I'm going to meet her right now," I shouted. I didn't look back. "I haven't seen her in a while." "It's okay, meeting her," I said. It was a lie. I was all alone because Mom had already been called up to the spaceships by signals from the mole in her neck. It was just me and my cat, and I have to tell you, I wasn't feeling too friendly toward the cat. I'd carried her for a while, but she squirmed like a bag of fish, so I set her down. When I walked, she followed me, flinching whenever someone ran by or honked a car horn, which was all the time. It was step, step, jerk, step, step, jerk, like she was doing the conga. Eventually, I looked behind, and then all around. I didn't see her anymore. "Fine," I said. "See ya, Pig." And that was that. My cat's name is Pig. I probably should have mentioned that. The weird thing about writing for people in the future is that you don't know how much you need to explain. Do people still keep pets in your time? Do you still have cats? I'm not asking if cats still exist. Right now we have a lot more cats than we know what to do with, but I'm not really writing this for people right now. I mean, if anyone besides my teacher ever sees these words, it'll be because I won the contest and this essay was buried in the time capsule with the photographs and newspapers and was dug up 100 years later, and now you're reading it in like a 5-legged chair while snacking on roast planet or whatever. And it seems like you should know everything about my time already, but then I think of how little I know about 1913, so maybe I should clear up a few things. This story starts in June 2013, about 6 months after the alien booth arrived, which also makes it 6 months after the aliens completely took over and about a week after they decided the human race would probably be happier if they all moved to some little out-of-the-way state where they could keep out of trouble. At the time, I lived in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was on the eastern side of the United States. The United States was this big country where everybody wore funny t-shirts and ate too much. I'd been living by myself after Mom left. I didn't want anyone to know. I had learned to drive our car short distances by nailing cans of corn to my church shoes so I could reach the pedals. I made a lot of mistakes at first, and if anyone was walking on the sidewalk of 49th and Pine after dark on March 3rd, 2013, I owe you an apology. But eventually I got really good, like NASCAR good. So while most people were reporting to the Boovish rocket pods for relocation to Florida, I figured I'd drive there myself with no help from anyone. I got directions off the internet, which wasn't as easy as it used to be because the Boov had already started shutting it down. But the route looked easy. The website said it would take 3 days, but most drivers weren't as good as I was. And they wouldn't be eating frosting and root beer so they could drive non-stop either. I worked my way through knots of people, past a woman with a baby in a crystal punch bowl, past a man carrying rotting boxes that bled baseball cards all over the streets, and finally to the community tennis courts where I'd left the car. It was a little hatchback, the size and color of a refrigerator, and only about twice as fast, but it didn't use much gas, and I didn't have much money. I drained our bank account, and there was less than I'd expected in the rainy day fund that Mom had kept at the bottom of an underwear drawer in the pantyhose egg labeled dead spiders, as if I hadn't already known it was there, as if I wouldn't have wanted to look at dead spiders. I threw the camera bag and backpacks into the back seat and suddenly got a dead weight in my stomach from the loneliness of it all. I turned my head this way and that, looking past the panicky people, looking past a man wearing oven mitts and holding a pot roast. For God's sake, pardon my language. I don't know what or who I was looking for. Certainly not the cat, but I called her anyway. Pig! I yelled. Pig! Shouting pig outdoors usually attracts some attention, but no one paid me any that day. Actually, on my third pig, one guy ducked, but I'm still not sure what that was about. Anyway, just as I was turning to get in the car, a fat gray cat came barreling across the street and leaped up into the dashboard. She turned around and stretched her cheek out for a scratch. Oh, I said, okay, I guess you can come, but you'll have to do your business at rest stops. Pig purred. By this point, I was thinking it would be nice to have some company, as I didn't expect to see anyone else for a couple of days. I assumed the highways would be empty, you see, with nearly everybody taking the rocket pods. I was right, and I was wrong. Did you know that cats don't like riding in cars? They don't, or at least mine didn't. Before we started out, I reset the trip odometer, so I know that Pig spent the first 22.5 miles staring out the rear windshield and hissing. She clung to the headrest of the passenger seat like a Halloween decoration, back arched and poofy. Calm down, I shouted as I dodged abandoned cars on the highway. I'm a really good driver. She stopped hissing and started growling, sort of. You know how cats growl, like pigeons who smoke too much. I couldn't have left you alone, I could have left you at home, traitor. You could have moved in with your precious Boov. I had no trouble looking at a cat and steering at the same time, but for some reason, the car sort of hopped over a skin of tire tread in the road, and Pig squealed and shot off the headrest, looped around the back seat a couple of times, and darted over the gear shift, finally curling into a ball under the brake pedal. Uh-oh, I muttered. I pressed the brake gently, trying to coax her out. She hissed and took a swipe at the can of corn under my shoe. I looked up at the road, dodged an empty motorcycle, then glanced back down at my feet. "Come on, pig," I said reassuringly while swerving to avoid a minivan. "Come on out." Oil tanker. "I'll give you a treat." Sports car. "Why had everyone just left their cars?" said Pig. "Yeah? You want a treat? Treat? I lilted over and over like a songbird. Pig still hadn't moved, but I had a stretch of clear road. I was just keeping my eye on a big rig on the left, in the distance, and that's when I saw something move. It hung in the air over the trailer, lazily bobbling up and down. It was a mass of bubbles. Soap bubbles, maybe. But some were the size of softballs and others the size of basketballs, and they all stuck and interlaced together to make a star shape as big as a washing machine. Like this. Just got a little picture. It didn't move with the breeze, just dipped and rose slightly as though tethered with invisible string to the big rig smokestack. And as my eyes traced down the smokestack, I saw something else, or someone else, standing on the road. "There's a guy or something," I said as much to myself as to Pig. The guy, or woman, or whatever, was wearing bright safety orange, easy to see, and maybe some kind of clear plastic helmet, and I thought, radiation suit? And then we got close enough to see it was one of them. A boov. Okay, I whispered and pulled the car as far to the right as I could without hitting the barricade. The boov noticed my approach and turned that weird body to face me. The sun was glinting off his helmet, but I think it raised its arm, palm out, in a way that must be recognized across the galaxy as stop. And then again, it was hard to tell as they had such small arms. I couldn't stop, but I could take my foot off the gas, so I slowly lost speed as I hugged the shoulder of the road and said Hail Marys under my breath. We were getting really close now, close enough to see that awful mess of legs under the boov's body and the broad, flat head inside the helmet. It made the gesture again, more forcefully, and it was definitely stop. I lifted my hand in return and smiled and waved and kept my eyes on the road. I didn't want to look at it anymore. So I almost missed it when the boov's other arm whipped down to its side and snapped back up with something in its hand. All at once, I recognized the thing from the TV, one of those horrible guns you saw a lot of when we'd still been trying to fight. Terrible guns that don't even make a noise or a light. They just pointed at you and then half your body was gone. Just like that. Well, one thing I could still do was hit the gas. I ducked and slammed on the pedal, and the car lurched forward not nearly fast enough, scraping the highway barricade and sending up sparks like the 4th of July. The boov shouted something I couldn't hear or understand. I tried to make a poor target of myself, swerving back and forth and looking up just in time to avoid hitting an SUV. I looked out at my right side mirror and saw that it had been wrenched off by the barricade. So I looked at my rearview mirror and noticed that most of the SUV wasn't there anymore. A huge chunk scooped out, as clean as ice cream. And so I tried to look at my left side mirror, but it wasn't there anymore either. I turned and saw the boov fading into the distance. Far away now, it wasn't chasing me. "Oh boy, Pig," I said softly. And Pig crawled out from under the brake like it wasn't anything to her one way or the other. A minute later, I pulled to the side of the road and stopped and looked around at the car. The boov gun had disintegrated my mirror, and there was a hole in the left rear window where the beam had entered the car. I craned my neck and saw there was an even bigger hole in the rear windshield where it had left. Each hole was as perfect as could be, like a biscuit cutter through dough. "I hate them," I said. "I hate them. We are really lucky, Pig." But Pig didn't hear. She was stretched out on the passenger seat, asleep. Why did the boov shoot? I didn't know. All I was doing was driving to Florida like they wanted. But at mile 48, I found out why nobody else was on the road. There wasn't one. We were curving around a bend when the car bucked over a pothole. My seat belt went taut as I jerked forward and back, pain twisting up my neck. Pig rolled off her seat, woke up briefly on the floor of the car, and fell back asleep where she was. I swerved around chunks of asphalt and rounded something that was less like a pothole and more like an empty swimming pool. Then another curve, and the road was gone. My little car dropped off a shelf of pavement into a crater of earth and tar, and I jiggled the steering wheel as I mashed my corn-can foot against the brake. We skidded and plowed through twisted metal curlicues that were once a barricade, then slid down the embankment, rolled over twice, and came to an abrupt stop in an Mopo parking lot. The air around the car was orange with dust. I clutched the steering wheel like a life preserver. Pig was sprawled on her back in the crook where the windshield meets the dash. Our eyes met, and she gave me a short hiss. So that was it. Nobody was taking their cars because the Boov had destroyed the highways. Of course they had. I wearily unbuckled myself and fell out of the car. Pig followed and stretched and darted off after a bug. I nearly puked. Can I say that in a school paper? That I puked? Because when I said nearly, what I meant was repeatedly. While I was bent over, I noticed we'd blown a tire. I wasn't sure if there was a spare, but it didn't matter much one way or the other since I didn't know how to change it. All Mom had ever taught me about vehicle maintenance was the number of a tow truck to call if you stopped moving forward. Well, it was a long shot, but I figured I might as well try to call somebody. I wasn't likely to get any answer, but we were too far from home to walk back now. I popped open the glove box and retrieved the emergency cell phone that only had 1 hour of talking time on it and was not a toy. I flipped it open and pushed the power button, and it suddenly crackled to life. Strange voices gibbered back and forth on the other end. But I didn't even dial yet, I mumbled, and the voices stopped. Hello? I said. The voices came again in bleats and pops, like a lamb stepping on bubble wrap. They grew louder, more agitated. I quickly hit the power button again and flapped the phone shut. It was like something gross and alien in my hand now, so I pushed it back into the glove box and put a car manual on top of it. Car manual, I thought. It might tell me how to change the tire. No, later. It can wait. I sat down. The sky was clear again, and blue. In the distance was a small town I didn't know. The tallest building was an old stone church, and this had a clean bite taken out of its bell tower. Nearby, I could see broken telephone poles hanging like limp marionettes. I'd been sitting long enough. Maybe there's still some food in the Mopo store, I said, brightly looking for Pig. For you time capsule types, Mopo was something called a convenience store, as in the soda is conveniently located right next to the donuts and lottery tickets. People who want to understand better how the human race was conquered so easily need to study those stores. Almost everything inside was filled with sugar, cheese, or weight loss tips. It was dark inside, but I'd expected that. Pig followed me to the door, which opened with a jingle, and into the empty store. The shelves were nearly bare, probably looted, except for some moldy bread and yogurt health snacks called Nutrizone Extreme Fitness Plus blaster bars with calcium. There was also a bag with a few tins of cat food, which was nice. I sat on the cold linoleum floor and ate one of the pink health bars, and Pig had a tin of Sea Captain's entree. I don't think we're going to make it to Florida, I said. Meow. Florida, that's where we're going. Big state, full of oranges. Pig went back to her food, and I took another bite that I was beginning to think was just a big eraser. Maybe we can stay here. We're pretty far outside the city. The Boov might not even notice. Meow. Sure we could. We could live in someone's house or a hotel, and the town's probably full of canned food. Meow, meow. Fine. You're so smart. Give me one reason why it wouldn't work. Meow. Oh, you say that about everything. Pig purred and settled down for a nap. I leaned back against an ATM and shut my eyes against the setting sun. I don't remember falling asleep, but it was dark outside when I woke with a loaf of bread under my head and heard the jingle of the front door. I gasped for breath and scampered under a shelf. Too late, I remembered Pig, who was nowhere to be seen. Something moved through the vacant store, its footsteps like a drum roll. Go away. Go away, I chanted in my head, as what I was sure was a Boov. It skittered past my row of shelves and got a full look at its cluster of tiny elephant legs clad in a light blue rubber suit. Boov. Probably sent to find me. Then the drumroll stopped. A wet, nasally voice said, "Oh, hello, kitten." Pig. How did you come to be inside of the Mopo? I heard Pig purr loudly. The skunk. She was probably rubbing up against each one of its 8 legs. Did someone let you to inside, My heart pounded, as if Pig might say, yeah, gratuity did. Aisle 5. Perhaps you are being hungry, the Boov told Pig. Would you enjoy to join me in a jar of cough syrup? The drumroll resumed. They were moving again. I poked my neck out of the shelf in time to see them walk through a door marked Employees Only. I slid out and ran, unthinking, for the door. I pushed through with a shove and a tinkling sound and thought, oh yeah, the bell. A quick look behind me and I was off. I sped to the car, retrieved my bag, and made for a row of hedges that lined the parking lot. I was safely behind them and watching through a gap in the leaves just in time to see the Boov peek out at the mopo. It squeezed through the door and looked from side to side, scanning the lot for whatever had been dumb enough to forget the door jingled. Then he gave a start when he saw my car and smiled back at Pig. I could see her through the door, her front paws up on the glass. Hello? The Boov shouted. He looked up toward the ruined highway and whistled through his nose. I tried to make myself as small as possible, tried to stop my heart from pounding or the blood from thrumming in my ears. The Boov pattered across the asphalt towards something new, something I hadn't noticed before. In the corner of the lot was this crazy-looking thing, like a huge spool of thread with antlers. It was all plasticky and blue, and it was hanging in the air about 6 inches above the ground. I would not hurt you, the Boov shouted again. If you would enjoy to be my guest, there is enough cough syrup and teething biscuits for everyone. Whatever, hopped his squat body atop the big spool, clamping down around the edges with his little elephant legs. His tiny frog arms extended up and gripped the antlers, and with a few flicks and twists, the blue plastic thing rose a foot into the air and sailed up the hill of shale and weeds to the highway. Hello! He shouted as he drifted away. There is no to fear. The Boov are no longer eating you people. The Boov weird little scooter disappeared over the ridge, and I darted toward the store. For what? To get Pig? She'd probably prefer to stay with the Boov. But she was all I had, and the car wouldn't drive on a flat tire, and my only thought was to vanish into this little town and hope the Boov didn't try too hard to find me. Time to go, Pig, I said as I burst into the mopo, my guts jangling like a nervous doorbell. She'd tried to slip out the door after the alien, I guess, but I scooped her up. Stupid cat. I pushed all the cat food and health bars into my bag and dashed out to the car. One last check to make certain I had everything, then I was gone. At the passenger door, I remembered the cell phone and wondered if I should take it, and it was about that time that I got a wicked idea. Pig squirmed in my arms. Oof, she said. I laughed. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We'll just march into the store and wait for your friend to come back. Pig hissed quietly to herself. Let me tell you how I thought this next part happened. I figured the Boov hovered around the old highway for a bit. Dum-de-dum, thinking, I sure for to am hoping to I find gratuity or whoever it am being. I eat her or I am to be turning her in or beaming her to Florida or something. Then the Boov maybe checked around the mopo and probably in the car, and then he thought, ho hum, am probably being just my imagination. There am no girl or whatever. Me sure am stupid. Sheep noise, bubble wrap, bubble wrap. Then the Boov parked his antler spool and went back inside the mopo and wondered where Pig was, and when the door stopped jingling, he heard something. So he thought, what am that? And went to investigate. And as he neared the frozen food section, he could tell maybe it was the voices of other Boov, even though he was so stupid. And he saw there was a freezer door standing open that hadn't been opened before. So he went right over to it and peeked in and made a sheep noise. Maybe at that moment he noticed all the freezer shelves on the next floor to my cell phone, but it didn't matter, because that was right when I kicked his alien butt inside and barred the door shut with a broom handle. The Boov hopped up and down and turned to face me. I was happy to see he looked pretty startled or frightened, and he pressed his thick face against the glass to get a good look at his captor. I did a little dance. What for are you did this? He said. I think that's what he said. It was hard to hear through the glass. I wondered suddenly if he'd run out of air after a while. The thought made me uneasy, and I had to remind myself of the situation I was in. Good, I whispered. I hope he does run out of air. I wished he could have been really cold in there too, but there wasn't any electricity. What? Said the Boov faintly. What said you? His eyes darted from side to side like a fish. His frog fingers pawed at the glass. I said you're getting what you deserve. You stole my mom, so I get to steal one of you. What? You stole my mom. My mom? My mom. The boob seemed to think about this for a second, then his eyes lit. Ah, my mom, he said happily. What is it about her now? I shouted and kicked the glass. Aha, the boob nodded as if I'd said something important. Ah, so can I come into the out now? No, I yelled. You cannot come into the out. You can never come into the out ever again. At this, the boob looked genuinely surprised and panicked. Then I will have on to shoot with my gun. I jumped back, palms up. In all of the excitement, I hadn't thought of that. My eyes darted to where his hips would be, if he'd had any. I frowned. You don't have any gun. Yes, yes, he shouted, nodding furiously, as though I'd somehow proven his point. No gun, so I will have to... His whole body trembled. Shoot forth the lasers from my eyeballs. I fell into a row of shelves. That one was new to me. Shoot forth the lasers? Shoot forth the lasers! You can do that? The boob hesitated. His eyes quivered. After a few seconds, he replied, Yes. I squinted. Well, if you shoot your eye lasers, then I'll have no choice but to explode your head. You humans cannot to explode. We can too. We just don't do it much. It's considered rude. The boob thought of this for a moment. Then we are needing a truce. You are not to exploding heads, and I will not to do my devastating eye lasers. Okay, I agreed. Truce. Truce. A few moments passed in the utter quiet of the store. So, can I come into the out? No! The boob pointed over my head, tapping his fingertip against the glass. I can to fixing your car. I see it is the broken. I folded my arms. What would a boob know about fixing cars? He huffed. I am Chief Maintenance Officer Boob. I can to fix everything. I can surely to fix primitive human's car. I didn't like that crack about my car, but it did need fixing. How do I know you'll do anything? You probably just call your friends and cart me off to Florida. The boob furrowed what might have been his forehead. Do not you want to go to Florida? Is where your people is to be. All humans decide to move on to Florida. Hey, I don't think we got to decide anything, I said. Yes, the boob answered. Florida. I sighed and paced the aisle. When I looked back at the freezer case, I saw the boob had picked up my cell phone. I could talk to them, he said gravely. I could call to them right now. It was true, he could. I slid the broom handle free of the door and opened it. The boob lunged forward, and I instantly regretted everything, except then I realized he wasn't attacking me. It must have been a hug, because I can't think of any better word for it. See, he said, boob and humankind can be friends. I always say. I patted him gingerly. It sounds crazy, I know that, but suddenly I was searching the little town for supplies while the boob worked on my car. I don't think I have to say at this point that Pig stayed with him. I hit 5 abandoned stores and found crackers, diet milk, shakes, bottled water, really hard bagels, honey frosted snocks, tomato paste, dry pasta, a bucket of something called tub that came with its own spoon, and light cochinilla fruit bites, which broke my usual rule against eating anything that was misspelled. The boob had told me something like some things he liked, so he also carried a bucket of breath mints, cornstarch, yeast, bouillon cubes, mint dental floss, and typing paper. Hey, boob! I shouted on my return. I could see him under the car, banging away. The car, I should mention, now sported 3 extra antennas. The holes in the windows were somehow not there anymore. There were tubes and hoses connecting certain parts of the car to certain other parts of the car, and a few of what I can only describe as fins. These appeared to be made from metal the boob had salvaged from the convenience store. One of them showed a picture of the frozen drink and the word slushious. There was an open toolbox, and the tools were everywhere, all of them strange. This seems like a lot of trouble for one flat tire. The boob stuck out his head. Flat tire? I stared back blankly for a second, then walked around to the other side. The tire was still flat. The car, it should to hover much better now, he called happily. Hover? I answered. Hover better? It didn't hover at all before. The Bove said, looking down. So this is why the wheels are so dirty. Probably. So, did it roll? Yes, I said crisply. It rolled on the ground. The Bove thought about this for a few long seconds. But how did it to roll with this flat tire? I dropped the basket and sat down. It doesn't matter, I said. Well, the Bove replied, it will to hover wicked good now. I use parts from to my own vehicle. He startled me at this point. The way he used wicked. It was slang. Something I didn't expect him to use. And it wasn't even popular slang. Nobody said it anymore. Nobody but my mom. And sometimes me. I guess it made me think of Mom. And I guess it made me a little angry. Eat your dental floss, Bove, I said, and kicked him the basket. He seemed to think nothing of it, and did as I said, sucking up strings of floss like spaghetti. You do not to say it right, he said finally. Say what? Bove. The way you say it is too short. It must to draw it out like a long breath. Bove. There's a couple pictures, one of the car and one of them. Where is it? After a moment, I swallowed my anger and gave it a try. Bove. No, Bove. Bove. The Bove frowned. Now you sound like sheep. I shook my head. Fine. So what's your name? I'll call you that. No, the Bove replied. For a human's girl to correctly be pronouncing my name, you would need 2 heads. But as a human name, I have chosen J-Lo. I stifled a laugh. J-Lo? Your Earth name is J-Lo? Aha, J-Lo corrected. Not Earth, Smekland. What do you mean, Smekland? That is the thing we have named this planet, Smekland, as to tribute to our glorious leader, Captain Smek. Wait, I shook my head. Whoa, you can't just rename the planet. Peoples who discover places get to name it. But it's called Earth. It's always been Earth. J-Lo smiled condescendingly. I wanted to hit him. You humans live too much in the pastime. We did land onto Smekland a long time ago. You landed last Christmas. Aha, not Christmas. Smekday. Smekday? Smekday. So anyway, that was how I learned the true meaning of Smekday. This Bove named J-Lo told me. The Bove didn't like us celebrating our holidays, so they replaced them all with new ones. Christmas was renamed after Captain Smek, their leader, who had discovered a new world for the Bove, which was Earth. I mean, Smekland. Whatever. The end. Gratuity. Interesting style overall, but I'm afraid you didn't really fulfill the assignment. When the judges from the National Time Capsule Committee rate our stories, they'll be looking for what Smekday means to us, not to the aliens. Remember, the capsule will be dug up 100 years from now, and the people of the future won't know what it was like to live during the invasion. If your essay wins the contest, they'll be reading it to find that out. Perhaps if you began before the Bove came. There's still some time to rework your composition before the contest entries need to be sent. If you'd like to try again, I'll consider it for extra credit. Grade C+. So I think we'll stop there. But it gets really good with this. Her interactions with J-Lo are super good, and here in the next chapter is when you learn just a little bit about the backstory. And the backstory about how the aliens got here is totally different from the movie, but it's still pretty good. So if you liked the movie, you would like the book. It gets a little bit rambling at parts, but it's still a super good story that takes alien invasions and just turns them completely on their head.